It is a brand new edition of Flyers Daily for the 13th of January, 2025. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. Something we do every week. We do it every Monday. We call it Mondays with Meltzer. Joining us from NHL.com and PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, it is Bill Meltzer. Bill, quite the weekend of hockey.
Absolutely, yeah. When we talk about what our memories were of the season when it's over, what you remember from this season a couple of years from now from the regular season, that Saturday's game will obviously jump out in there, and particularly coming off of one of the more disappointing performances of the season on Thursday. It was also with the doctor order, just in terms of maybe getting things a little bit, back on track again. Whereas before that, they're playing good games but not winning them. This is a game the Flyers fully deserved to win against a team that they needed to beat, and they did that. Got the shutout. Just go down the checklist of things the Flyers really could have used.
Yeah.
But given the nature of the season, that doesn't mean anything on Monday night. You just got to go out and do it again against the defending champs, no less. So
yeah, how you carry it forward's all that matters now. You use the word remember, and what made me remember is that we took that environment for granted for so long.
Sure did.
Most of Flyers history. But when we got to look at it on Saturday night and you felt the vibe in the building and the impact of the fans and creating a home ice advantage, it just made you think the team's got to get to a spot where you don't need the storyline of Cutter Gauthier for that environment to have that kind of feel, to have that kind of fun. Because I said this on the postgame show, I don't think there's not a person that paid for a ticket or a concession or parking or anything on Saturday night that didn't feel like they got what they wanted. That was full serve. And to get that all the time, teams got to earn it. That's the only way to do it.
No, 100%. Those of us from a somewhat older generation of fans, you tell somebody who wasn't a fan or was born till later on that a random weeknight game against the Hartford Whalers, the Quebec Nordiques, whatever, right? That was the norm. There was always that intensity and electricity in the building. The only way to get that back is not just kind of a lightning in a bottle kind of year like 1920 was.
Yeah,
you have to get there and you have to sustain it for a while, and then that's how you go in and you start to build up that kind of home ice event, that kind of intimidation to walk into your building. That was the first time in a while I'd seen another team get intimidated to be in the Flyers building. I mean, especially with Cutter Gauthier, but really as that game went along in the third period, that whole Anaheim team looked defeated. And the crowd was the kind of the extra guy on the ice. The energy level, which they kept up the entire game, was absolutely critical to it. But the flip side of that too is that there have been other games where it's come in with just an electric atmosphere and it goes sideways fast, and then the energy turns on you.
Yeah.
Right. So it was kind of the perfect way to handle all that, carry it through the night, and it was just downright fun.
You're not going to get those environments with consistency until the fan base. You're going to have to build equity to get it, because the rug's been pulled out a few times from underneath them. False hope and things looking like they were going in the right direction, only for them, the back and forth of 1 year in the playoffs, 1 year not, for through the 2010 through 2020, and that happening. They just never could fully buy in because it was so back and forth. It's 1 year you felt good, the next you didn't. So that consistency is going to be a big part of it. I'll tell you what, Bill, if I'm the coach, Cronin, the coach of the Ducks, I'm a little concerned with what I saw in that game for the long term from the Ducks, in the way that Gauthier did not meet the moment at all.
Yeah.
Some players get in these situations, and I'm not comparing him to Crosby, but Crosby loved being the black hat in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I thought that Cutter looked like he wanted to be anywhere in the world but there. Didn't embrace it, and I thought his play was so thin in the game. I went down during the second period on the glass because I wanted to get a closer look. I mean, pulling up on pucks that he could have won races to, fumbling pucks as he was going into the zone, feeling like guys were going to blow him up at any given second. I thought he played scared and tentative, and that would concern me if I'm the coach.
No, for
He's done
sure.
nothing since he left here to make me think, wow, I wish he was still here.
For sure. And if you look at the 2 games he played after playing the Flyers, he as we recorded this, he just had 2 goals, including an overtime winner, because it was like 1,000-pound weight had been lifted off his shoulder. Mm-hmm. But the games like Saturday night, those are really the ones that you have to embrace. Those are the ones you have to step up in. Those are the
easy games, like the game last night.
Yeah.
The game Saturday night, that's a hard game. Like I didn't know my guys got some skin for that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And if I were Cronin, I think one of the things I can almost point to a couple plays that happened close together, right? Where he got body checked 3 times, twice by Ristolainen, who really lined him up and blocked him. I mean, and totally clean hits. Mm-hmm. And those are the kind of hits I like in the kind of Nick Grossman used to throw. Those are just, you feel it from your hair down to your skates, right? Yep. It was just clean body check, and he wanted no part of it. He wanted no part of it the rest of the night. Like he was done. He might as well just gone and taken a shower and change his clothes, because he was done. And it's something that something that his teammates no doubt noticed. It's something that his coach no doubt noticed, and it's something that he's going to have to prove otherwise for moving forward.
And it's a knock on him coming in. He does great when things are easy. When things are difficult is when he's not stepped up, both in NCAA and other stages he's been on. So his shot and his release is going to carry him to a point. But the chances of him being special, I mean, you can see competitiveness in a guy's eyes, and he did not look like he had compete in his eyes at all. Bill, the game it just hit the note on every level, and on the hockey level too. As you kind of alluded to, that 6 different different scores all over the thing, all over the score sheet. Konecny with 4 primaries. The shutout, which was probably an easy shutout, but Ersson could have used a quiet game to do that. I thought that was important. But really where we sit now is this has to be an inflection point in their season. These next 5 games, this has to propel them, or they're going to be playing out the string by 4 nations.
Oh, for sure. And you talk about those fatigue factor games. I mean, these are stacked up here, and not just in the Flyers. Everybody's going through it. Yep. So you have no excuses. You have to go out, and they're going to have to beat some tough teams. After the back-to-back against Jersey, it's this kind of weird schedule where you're playing a top team, you're playing a non-playoff team, you're playing a top team, you're playing a team that's kind of on the bubble. I mean, it's going to be all over the map. Really, you have to worry about how you play and get as many of those points as you can. Flyers are still in a spot where they're going to need to put some wins together to at least stay in the hunt for a wild card spot. I thought Charlie O'Connor raised a good point too. One of the most important things in last night's game, psychologically for Sam Ersson, right?
Yep.
The shutout, but B, hopefully staying healthy.
Yep.
If Ersson can do what he's done for stretches when he's been healthy, then all of a sudden, not all your goaltending issues go away, because you're still going to need both goalies.
Yep.
But the issue gets a lot better. And if the Flyers get at least decent goaltending, to me, not getting decent goaltending and not having a healthy Ersson, that's why the Flyers are where they are. I think right now they'd be sitting on 5 or 6 more points if they'd gotten better and healthier goaltending. So as long as that can remain the case, that they're treading the right way with that, then I think that they could start to put some wins together and pull back towards the race a little bit more.
They're going to need particular guys that are taking steps to continue taking steps and growing their performance and their stats. Frankly, one guy that I really liked on Saturday night's game, because he's a byproduct of this Cutter Gauthier trade, and he's a big part of the storyline. Yeah. It's what you got for Cutter, and that's Jamie Drysdale. And he didn't seem like he was a shrinking violet in the moment. I thought he was jumping up into plays immediately in the game. He gets the power play goal. I thought he was assertive. And to me, he was a guy that said, okay, I'm a part of this. I'm not going to deny it. I might as well write the story positively for me. I thought he performed incredibly well in that game after I thought was a really rough game for him against Dallas.
Against Dallas, yeah.
And he fell on his sword in that Dallas game too after the game.
He handled it perfectly. Yep. Took total personal accountability for it. That's not easy. That's not easy standing out there and facing Heat when you know that you really had a poor night on a night when you really could have been used to step up. And where the Flyers fell into that early 2-0 hole, he wasn't the only culprit. They're just the team as a whole, right? But he was a direct part of the two. One was kind of bad coverage. The other one was a situation where he goes over to his partner's side, which is one of the absolute no-nos, especially when the goal gets scored where you should have been.
Where you abandoned.
Right. So, that's a really rough game to come off of against a very good team. Coming in the game against your former team, a lot of emotion in the building. And not just his goal, not just his assist, but his assertiveness and jumping into plays. I think I texted to you that the player that I saw in that Dallas game, who I would really like Jamie to become like, is like Thomas Harley.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of the same skill set. I think you saw that on Saturday. Now you need to see it again on Monday against a very good Florida team and consistently moving forward. There's gonna be some trade-offs on the defensive side. He needs to obviously keep getting better defensively, but the number one thing he has to do is contribute up ice, use his speed, make himself a threat up ice, and when every team has to have that in the back of their mind, he can continue to work on the other things. Yeah. But that was kind of a glimpse of what you need to see him be, even apart from scoring the goal. Just how often he was up on the play. That's the player he needs to be. And the player that the Flyers need him to be.
Yeah, no doubt. If he can be that, and with consistency as his development continues, then that's a big element for Jamie Drysdale. I really liked his game on Saturday, and I just love how he embraced it. And he got the belt after the game, and I thought that was really cool. And the fans cheering Jamie's better. Yeah, it was quite the environment. Frankly, Bill, it was the first time, maybe a perfect timing, because I think Flyers Twitter was ready to just kill each other at this point. But it feels like the first time that the fan base, the team, the organization were all on the same page with what needed to take place in that game. So it was great. It was just awesome to see. And you can see why a guy like Travis Konecny would step up. Bill, I can't stop wondering what Konechny's numbers would look like. He's now 11th in the NHL in scoring. What his numbers would look like with a legit playoff roster. Like one of those teams that is going to the playoffs and can make some noise, and just a slightly better than average power play. He's pacing at more than 90 points this season. Yeah. I can't imagine. I mean, he could be a 100-point player if he's on a team with good depth and, a good power play.
I certainly think, so the power play part of it to me is crucial. I think maybe on certain teams like Colorado a couple of years where they're just really at their peak, you might slot him down a line. Yeah, and so that he might be about where he is at now, just because a fewer times on the ice, but at least slightly lower. But I think that if he was one of those main 2-3 guys on an absolutely stacked roster, and he is playing up higher, I think it would benefit him point wise. I think that he's really grown so much as a leader, as a tone setting guy. There were times when Travis was a younger player where sometimes his feet move faster than his head. He easily goaded into penalties. He would turn pucks over just in some real and not that he's still totally immune from that, but it doesn't happen nearly as often. And the good outnumbers the bad by a large margin.
Yeah. He's going to be our guest on Wednesday's episode this week. I had a chance to sit down with him on Friday, and he talked about that, not getting mixed up in all the BS, still being a guy out there that's going to be emotional, going to chirp and do all that. And he does, but not to the detriment of his game. I think he's just been so good, and watching this maturation of the player. And it's not just, how he plays, and we know he plays with a ton of, like, his hair's on fire. But it's when he speaks, and it's not that it's what he says. Like, some guys are, fire and brimstone kind of guys, and they can say things really passionately. He's very laid back in the way to live, kind of like Travis Sanheim, who's going to be a guest coming up tomorrow on the episode. Very chill guy. But it's not how you say it. Sometimes it's what you say and where your brain goes to make you say that, which tells me so much about the player. Bill, as I alluded to before, you're going to need some players to really that maybe are catching some rhythm here this season. Erson's obviously a huge one. Frost is a big one. Tippett, I'd like to see be more consistent in the outcome of games, determining the outcome of being that player with a little more consistency in that regard. Mishkov, I think his legs have come and gone a little bit. Yeah. But they're going to need all of those guys, and more. Drysdale is going to be another guy that's going to need to be consistent for this team to get back into the mix here in the Eastern Conference. Not only are they 5 points out of wild card too, but they got teams to jump. So you can't say, we played good but didn't get a good result anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And it's going to be predicated on all those players.
No, absolutely. And I'll add Joel Farabee to that too.
Yeah, the return. What does the scratch do, right?
Yeah. I think that the head coach handled it the right way, said the right things. It wasn't punitive, whatever. It was, that they need to get licks on the lineup. He could have used a reset because his play has been down a little bit recently. Honestly, of all the guys struggling in the Dallas game, and there were many, I thought Joe especially struggled. There were a couple. He was just kind of in his own head a little bit, being in the wrong place a few times. I got that, right? A player never wants his Iron Man streak to end that way with a healthy scratch.
Yeah.
So although the head coach can say it isn't punitive, the player's going to take it as punitive. That's every player. That's every player ever. He's a pro. Take a step back, take a deep breath. Handle like a pro. Come back out and double down. Reset a little bit and then come out and play well. I'm really curious to see if he is in the lineup Monday or whenever he gets back in the lineup, how he responds to that. I go back to how we played up through the All-Star break last year.
Yep.
I think that if you watch a team, that player is in there. He just needs to unlock it on a consistent basis. It's too late in the season for that to be the whole season. Unfortunately, coming in, Joel needed that to be a whole year. I'll say the same thing with Morgan Frost. With Morgan, he came in really needing to do what he did in the latter 2/3 of 2012, 2013, and the second half last year, and do that all season, right?
Yeah.
It obviously didn't work out that way. He had a very poor start to the season. He's now seemingly how he trended the last 2 years. I did it to check with him, but I checked the whole roster, and I actually posted on X/Twitter what the Flyers players had done, both the position guys and the goalies, over the last 11 games and over the last 22 games. So you're talking about a quarter season sample, and basically going back a few weeks at this point now to kind of a little bit just before like the holiday break. With Morgan, he has 9 points in his last 11 games. 5 of them are goals. And if you take away that coach's challenge in San Jose, which was not his offside, and it was a scan offside, and that's one of those that's a pet peeve of mine when a goal is reviewed 20 seconds after it's scored.
Yeah.
And so if you didn't call the offside at the line, to me that should be a goal. And if it goes the other way too, if someone is a goal scorer, it feels cheap to me to take that off the board. At that late point. But it is what it is. Whether you call it 9 points or 10 points, it's playing the same way. Officially, it's 9 points in 11 games. If Morgan can do that, it's an if, right? But if he can put up 7, 8, 9 points every 10, 11 games, that's the pace you need to play. That's what a second line player is.
Yeah.
Right? And if he paces it over 22 games, so the last quarter season, and that kind of neatly dates back to right when he got back in the lineup after he was scratched. It was a game against Golden Knights. It was a game against Vegas. and he kind of came back with a vengeance and whatever. And he's had some ups and downs since then. Has been a consistent upward trend. But if you look at what he's done since then, what does it pace out for? Well, it paces out to just under 60 points. Yeah. And that's okay. It's not great, but that's much closer to where you need him to be. The thing with Frost is some guys are judged on their process, and some guys are judged on their stats. And there have been times where I thought Morgan's process was actually trending right or in a good place, but the points weren't there. And there have been other games where the points were there, but maybe other things weren't going so well. And one of the things I like about Morgan is his level of honesty. I asked him after the game last night where he thinks his game is, and he's still, there's still things he wants to work on. So one thing over the last 11 games, because he had been at like 53% on faceoffs, he's been at 42% over the last 10. That has to be better. Yeah. And particularly with how reliant the Flyers are in winning that first power play faceoff, that has to be better. Although I think he's a player who works hard defensively and can sometimes make some pretty nice back-checking plays or breaking plays up, he still has to be consistently a little bit better in off-puck situations. You're not doing the work ethic just in terms of making him play. Like a lot of times he'll be there, he'll intercept the pass, he'll break something up, and then he won't clear it with enough gusto, and it'll get held in. Yeah, that's a detail that he has to improve on. There are times I think where Morgan will still carry the puck up ice, and he'll beat one guy and then try to beat a second guy and lose the puck.
It's one too many, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so it amounts to nothing when you beat the one guy. Attacking through the middle a little bit more consistently. That's something I think he can still get better at. Yeah. And you could do the same thing really for a lot of guys on the team with Owen Tippett. I'm not surprised that he had a big game against. I knew that line was. I just felt it. That line in the third period against Dallas, where Tippett hit a post, he's flying down the ice, right, and an opponent like Anaheim. That's a game where he looked like he's ready to kind of bust out a little bit. Yeah. It was the same thing. It was the same thing if you take it back to the Black Friday game where he took a lot of heat on Twitter. Yeah. But he was flying. He just kept wiping out, or pucks kept hopping on him, but he looked like he was very close. And the next game, which is in St. Louis, he scored, and then he went on his hottest streak of the season. Yeah. He's been a little bit too up and down. I really want to see that line. With Tippett and with Frost, stay with Konecny, and this is something where sometimes where I think John Tortorella will change things and not go back to it. If you remember in the game against Columbus, right before, so the last game was against Pittsburgh before the holiday break. They played a game against Columbus, and that line was dominant with Tippett, Konecny, and Frost. And Tortorella said right after the game, he even said a pregame for the Pittsburgh, I want to look at that line for a while and see what they do. Yeah. Fortunately, they go into Pittsburgh. They get scored on their first shift, and they got scored on their third shift. And thankfully, the third one came off the board because of a coach's challenge. But it was still a pretty lousy shift, and still one that no coach would be happy with. But what happened was, okay, you've been scored on twice in 3 shifts. They got broken up, and they were not back together again until the third period against Dallas. So if you want to look at the line, you kind of have to stay with it for a while. And they've shown before that if they play together, they can do some good things. So you have the Cates line. So that's one line that you know what you're going to get on pretty much in a game in and game out basis. And they've been scoring lately, etc. Now, if you have this line, let it stay together for a while. It wasn't really clicking with when they had Michkov with Tippett and with Frost, so fine separating them. Now let's say you could get Couturier, Farabee, and Michkov going a little bit. Yeah. Right, and then you have the paling line that you know what you're going to get out of
with Laughton and Hathaway.
Right? Yeah. And they're going to play that same kind of game almost every night. And incidentally, just real fast, another really nice thing from the game against Anaheim. It's always nice when your fourth line contributes a little bit offensively because those guys work their tails off quite often with not a lot of reward. It was really nice to see Garden Hathaway get one. It was nice to see Paling get one.
Yeah, so. That was a great finish by Paling as well. Yeah. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to have Travis Sanheim not tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, Tuesday. We'll have Travis Sanheim will be our guest. Fascinating conversation. TK on Wednesday and Sean Couturier on Thursday. So we got a busy week here on Flyers Daily. Flyers will have Florida tonight. We'll break it down tomorrow as well. Read Bill's work at NHL.com and PhiladelphiaFlyers.com. Everybody, thanks for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. And we will talk to you tomorrow on a brand new Flyers Daily.